Hey guys, tonight we travel far back in time, thousands of years actually, into the land of pyramids, papyrus, and painfully hot days. Welcome to ancient Egypt. You're not watching from afar. No, tonight you're stepping barefoot onto a sandy riverbank, the sun already clawing its way over the desert horizon. It's morning in a place that never really cools down. The scent of wet reeds and old fish wafts up from the Nile, and your first steps stick in the mud. You might think this is going to be a spiritual, golden-lit adventure, maybe some stargazing with pharaohs, the gentle swish of linen robes and cool night winds across the dunes. Spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I always love seeing where and when you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand there, blinking at the light, dressed in what can only be described as a stiff, scratchy wrap of linen that leaves little to the imagination. It itches. Your sandals flap comically against the dusty ground. Welcome to your first mistake, arriving with expectations. The air is already warming. A dry breeze tugs at your wrap. You shade your eyes and look around. Your village, if you can call it that, consists of several mud brick homes clustered close together, their roofs flat and just tall enough to climb onto when the Nile floods. Children shriek in the distance, already chasing one another near the water with the sort of energy only people who haven't yet felt heat exhaustion can muster. Chickens scatter at your feet. A donkey tied to a wooden post gives you a judgmental side-eye. You nod back politely. Ancient Egypt is not here to impress you, it's here to test you. A man walks past balancing a clay pot on his head. He's wearing nothing but a belt and confidence. You try to copy his walk. You fail. You trip in a rut and nearly faceplant into a basket of onions. The air smells like smoke, fish, and something sweet, perhaps dates. You follow the scent. A woman nearby pounds flour in a stone basin, her hands white with dust, her arms roped with muscle. She doesn't even glance up. You get the feeling she's worked harder before sunrise than you've worked all week. You're sweating. A lot. It's not even 8 a.m. yet. This is the Nile River Valley, the heart of ancient Egypt. Without this precious blue artery cutting through the desert, none of this civilization could exist. The river floods yearly, like clockwork. So predictable, the Egyptians built their entire calendar around it. But you're not here to admire the landscape. You're here to live it, and living here means never really being clean, never quite full, and definitely never cold. You wander past a workshop where a boy no older than 10 is carving something into wood. He has the focus of a monk and the knife skills of a Michelin chef. He's shaping what looks like a toy, maybe a spinning top. He catches you watching and grins. You grin back. Then you realize his toy is for an offering, for the gods. The same gods who demand your sweat, blood, and roughly 10% of your weekly grain, assuming you're lucky enough to grow any. You duck into the shade of a home and immediately you're engulfed in the scent of damp earth and cooking oil. The roof is held up by palm trunks and the interior walls are coated in dried mud. Inside, a family eats a meal. Small bowls of lentils, bits of dried fish, and that omnipresent flatbread that's more sand than wheat. You're offered a seat. It's a kind gesture until you try sitting. The stool is lower than you expect and tips slightly, spilling you onto your backside. Laughter erupts. You smile, embarrassed. At least the bread's decent. Kind of, if you ignore the crunch of grit between your molars. Someone points toward the temple on the horizon. "They'll want help today," says a man with arms like tree trunks. You nod, not understanding, and head in that direction. Along the way, the sounds of Egypt wrap around you. Donkey brays, children singing something repetitive and hypnotic, the splash of water against irrigation dikes, and above it all, the hum of life. This place is loud, but it's alive. You pass by a field of workers knee-deep in mud. They're guiding water through hand-dug channels, redirecting the Nile's bounty. Their legs are caked in silt, their skin shines with sweat, and none of them stop. A fringe detail, by the way. These workers often used song to keep rhythm, not just to stay sane, but to drown out the yelling of overseers. One chant you hear is just the same 3 notes over and over. It's maddening, it's catchy. You'll be hearing it in your dreams if you survive to sleep tonight. Historians still argue whether these early irrigation workers were all free labourers or if some were actually conscripted, temporary state slaves. Records are vague. Stone carvings aren't great at nuance. Either way, everyone worked. And then, there it is, a towering statue of some god you vaguely recognise from a museum tour once. Hawk head, crocodile face, who knows? It stares over the fields like a divine traffic cop, judging your every move. You finally reach the temple district. Huge limestone walls rise before you, carved full of glyphs you can't read and won't learn, unless you want to spend 20 years training as a scribe. A priest emerges from the shadowy colonnade, dressed in crisp linen and enough eyeliner to make a modern rock star jealous. He points to a pot nearby. You assume he wants you to carry it. You try. It's filled with water, heavy. Your arms tremble. You spill half of it. The priest sighs. You're beginning to suspect that the average Egyptian day isn't one of majesty or mystery. It's just work. Endless, grinding work, layered with religion, superstition, and the faint hope that if you live right, maybe you'll get a slightly less painful death. But then, as the sun climbs higher and the heat begins to shimmer off the stone paths like ghostly fire, you pause, you look around, and despite the dirt under your nails, the flies buzzing at your ears, and the smell of goat that seems to follow you everywhere, there's a strange beauty here. A timeless rhythm, a civilization that pulses like the river itself. You are part of something enormous, older than you can understand. Something sacred, even in its sweat and suffering. Just don't get too comfortable. The day's just getting started. Section 2. You're starving, which makes sense. You've just spent the morning lugging water jugs the size of toddlers, squatting in ditches with swarms of gnats in your nostrils, and attempting to look useful to people who clearly think you're ornamental at best. So when someone waves you toward the midday meal, you shuffle over with the hope of something, anything, edible, just a little comfort, a hot meal. Maybe a roast something, a honey-glazed fig, maybe a nope. Flatbread, again. This time it's hard as roof tile and somehow grittier than the last one. You bite into it and immediately understand why most ancient Egyptian skulls show worn-down, cracked molars. Your teeth practically scream. The bread is full of sand, not deliberately, but because their grinding stones were, let's say, enthusiastic. Each loaf is part meal, part mineral sample. You chew slowly, cautiously. The flavour is not terrible. Sour, yeasty, earthy. You think you detect caraway seed, or is that dirt? Hard to tell. Next to the bread is a bowl of something dark and fizzy, beer, but not the cold, bubbly kind you're picturing. This is warm, thick, and about as frothy as a bucket of pond water. You lift the cup, peer into the yeasty sludge, and sip. Okay. That's not water. It tastes fermented and weirdly tangy, almost like liquid sourdough starter, but it's filling and slightly intoxicating, and that might be the only reason anyone drank it. The buzz helps you forget you're essentially drinking liquid bread, unfiltered and stored in clay jars that probably haven't been cleaned since King Scorpion's reign. And you're still hungry. But wait, what's that? A lovely bowl of lentils? Thank the gods. You dip your fingers because, yes, no utensils, and scoop up a generous mouthful. It's warm, salty, nutty, and surprisingly comforting. You almost start to relax until something crunchy enters the mix, not a lentil. You freeze. Glance down, is that a beetle leg? It is. Welcome to protein, ancient Egypt style. Historians still argue whether the presence of insects in food was always accidental or sometimes tolerated as added nutrition. Some suggest peasants didn't care. When you're burning 4,000 calories a day just trying to survive, you're not picky about bonus protein. Fringe fact. Honey was often added to sweeten things like dates, beer, or cakes, but the bees weren't filtered out. People sometimes just ate around them. So yeah, you might get a wing or two. You glance around. No one else is flinching. Everyone's munching contentedly. The children are double-fisting onion wedges. One guy's chewing dried fish straight from the sun-bleached rack like it's jerky. And then there's the smell. It hits you when someone opens a clay pot. You gag. It's pickled fish, fermented in brine and heat for days. It's the kind of scent that makes your eyes water and your soul reconsider its contract with your body. You say no thanks. You move on. Later that day, you're offered a delicacy, something they call a cake, but which resembles a dense hockey puck made from dates, barley, and nuts. It's dry, it's sticky, it glues your jaw shut. But it's also the first thing you've had today that didn't involve sand, beer foam, or surprise legs. Small win. But what about the elite? Surely they're sipping wine and biting into roasted goose, right? Well, sort of. The nobles did eat better. Ducks, geese, even beef if they were lucky, but you're not invited to those parties. Also, fun fact, wealth didn't mean teeth. Most elites had it worse because they consumed more bread, and thus more ground-up grit. X-rays of royal mummies show horrific dental decay, abscesses, tooth loss, and infection. Even queens had bad breath. And the vegetables? Sparse, no tomatoes yet. No corn, just leeks, onions, garlic, radishes. You're basically living in a raw soup. Which you sometimes drink, by the way. Broths were common, mostly water, maybe a bone or two. Think bone tea. The gods at least ate well, symbolically. Offerings of bread, beer, and meat were piled at temples daily. Much of it went to the priests afterward, though, so the divine diet became priestly perks. A little side whisper for your modern soul. This diet, high in carbs, low in variety, probably caused widespread nutritional deficiencies. Many peasants showed signs of anemia. Some suggest this was due to a lack of iron, others think it was parasitic infection. Either way, you're probably pale and tired for a reason. You retreat under an acacia tree, trying to digest both your meal and the experience. The tree's sparse shade does little to stop the heat, but it's enough to feel momentarily human again. You hear a voice nearby, a woman singing softly as she grinds flour. The rhythm is hypnotic. You lean back, let the bread bloat settle. Just then, someone calls out, pointing at the river. A young boy is floating in the water, laughing, his arms around a clay pot for buoyancy. His father wades in behind him, yelling about crocodiles. Crocodiles. You sit up, alarmed. The boy just laughs harder. Yep. They're real, big, ancient and sacred in some regions, but still, crocodiles, and suddenly that beer is churning in your belly. You close your eyes and think of modern food. Pizza, salad, ice cubes, even microwave noodles, anything but sandy bread, beer porridge, and beetle lentil stew. But ancient Egypt isn't about comfort, it's about survival, ritual, and getting enough calories to do it all again tomorrow. You groan, stand up slowly, and brush sand from your linen wrap. A fly buzzes past your ear, lands on your lip, and takes a lap before you can swat it. You sigh. Welcome to lunch in ancient Egypt. Section 3. You're full now, but not in the satisfying, ready for a nap kind of way. More like bloated, buzzing with flatbread-induced beer bubbles and slightly afraid of whatever was crawling in your lentils. You squint up at the sky. The sun is high and vengeful, the light so sharp it feels like the air has teeth. And just when you think, maybe I'll lie down for a moment, someone yells your name, or rather, the name they've decided to call you. You can't understand the words, but the tone that you understand, it's the universal language of, get up, work isn't done, you're a peasant today. A full-fledged, mud-covered, sunburned, unpaid Egyptian peasant, you had dreams once, probably. They're vague now, something about comfort, shade, and no flies in your nose, but that was this morning. Now your entire world is the Nile, your tools and your aching back. The field calls. You shuffle toward the banks of the great river, your feet crunching on baked mud, your shoulders already sore from carrying more than your modern self is designed to handle. The Nile has flooded recently. That's a good thing. It means the land is rich, soft and sticky like brown pudding. It also means today is irrigation day. Lucky you. You're handed a tool that looks like a giant wooden spoon. It's a shadoof, and your job is to swing it back and forth for hours, scooping water and dumping it into carved ditches that snake through the crops like miniature canals. It's kind of fun. For the first 5 minutes, you hum to yourself. Splash, lift, pull. Then again and again and again. By the 10th minute, your shoulders are on fire. By minute 20, you swear your arms are trying to fall off your body and escape across the desert. Welcome to the daily grind of ancient Egyptian agricultural life. Fringe detail? Peasants didn't own the land. They worked it for temples, nobles, or the pharaoh, who was technically the land's divine landlord. You, lucky one, are part of the massive labor force that keeps the grain silos full and the scribes smug. You're bent at the waist, mud on your knees, sweat stinging your eyes. And the worst part? No deodorant for anyone, anywhere. The guy next to you smells like goat stew and regret. But at least there's rhythm to the work. Even if it's grueling, it's also oddly meditative. You find your pace, you listen to the birds calling across the marshes. An ibis wades nearby, noble and elegant, like it owns the place. Which, to be fair, it kind of does. Ancient Egyptians worshipped animals as incarnations of gods. Cats, crocodiles, ibises. That bird over there might just be a priest in disguise, or at least someone's ancestor watching your form and silently judging your water scooping technique. A woman nearby is tending to some young papyrus plants. She sings softly under her breath, the same song you heard earlier, the one with the lilting rise and fall. It's hypnotic, peaceful even. And then, snap. A whip cracks somewhere behind you. Someone dropped their tool. No injury, just a warning. You're reminded that life here isn't just hard, it's watched closely, carefully, by overseers, by priests, by the spirits of the dead. Probably by beetles too. Historians still argue whether daily life was more community-driven or rigidly hierarchical. Evidence shows both. People helped each other, but there was always a boss, always someone making sure the Nile's gift was harvested and stored, mostly for someone else's benefit. You feel your stomach churn again. That beer was definitely questionable. Someone passes you a handful of dates. They're sticky and sweet, like chewy little miracles. You thank them with a nod. There's no shared language, but the exchange is clear. You're in this together. Midday rolls into afternoon. The sun shifts slightly, still fierce, but now casting longer shadows on the reeds. Your job shifts too. Now you're digging rows for planting, hunched low to the ground, your fingers caked with earth, nails broken, palms blistered. The soil is fertile, sure, but filled with sharp little rocks and bits of pottery discarded long ago. Sometimes you find a shard with writing on it, old scraps of notes or shopping lists. You stare at them, these ghost echoes of ordinary lives. One broken fragment just says 2 onions, 1 loaf, fig wine. It's the ancient version of a crumpled grocery receipt, except it's immortalized in clay. It makes you pause. Someone lived this same day before you. Ate the same bread, cursed the same sun. There's a weird comfort in that. But it doesn't make your knees hurt less. A fringe practice. Farmers sometimes made small clay figures of themselves and buried them with their tools as part of harvest rituals. Kind of like performance insurance for the gods. Here's a mini-me, please make my real crops grow. You wonder if the gods ever mistook the doll for the real person and accidentally gave someone else your blessing. Typical bureaucracy. As the day winds on, someone starts singing again, a slow chant to the goddess Renenutet, protector of the harvest. It's eerie and beautiful. The sun begins to drop, the air cools by a few blessed degrees, the smell of damp earth thickens. A boy runs past you barefoot, laughing, his feet splattering through the irrigation channels like it's a game. A goose honks angrily as he passes. You pause to stretch. Every joint in your body sounds like it's made of crushed pottery. You wipe your forehead and realize your entire face is crusted with salt from dried sweat. You glance at the river. For a moment you think about jumping in. You're warned not to, not because it's forbidden, but because this is crocodile territory. And those beasts, despite being sacred to Sobek the Nile god, do not care about your spiritual respect. They bite hard and fast, so you settle for splashing water on your arms. The coolness is brief, but divine. You sigh, close your eyes, another day in the fields, done. Sort of. You still have to carry bundles of papyrus, tie them, stack them for drying. You do it without thinking now. Muscle memory is setting in, and so is hunger, again. As you shuffle back toward the village, you pass a man whispering to a small figurine. It's carved from wood, its face worn away. You realize it's his household god. He's asking for rain, or maybe fewer locusts, or a little more energy in his legs tomorrow. You get it. You'd pray too. You return to your mud brick home and a woman hands you a cup of beer. Bless her heart. It's warm, it's sour, it's perfect. You lean against the doorway, bones vibrating, and stare at the horizon. The Nile gleams in the dusk, dark and gold like spilled ink. The birds fly low. The temple bells ring faintly in the distance. You made it. You survived a full day as an Egyptian peasant. Barely, but the night's still young, and tomorrow's waiting. Section 4. You're sore in places you didn't know existed. Your thighs feel like overcooked papyrus stems, and your back is attempting to form a new shape, something between a question mark and a collapsed tent. You barely slept last night. The floor of your mud brick house is exactly as comfortable as it sounds. There's no mattress, just a woven reed mat, and maybe a linen scrap if you're lucky. And the noises, gods, the noises. Dogs howling, people coughing, someone loudly arguing with a goat. Also, mosquitoes. Ancient Egypt has a lot of them. You slap one off your arm and wonder briefly if it carries any of the same ancient diseases that once plagued pharaohs. Morning comes, and with it a new challenge, literacy. You, my brave and sleepy traveller, have been summoned to learn the art of writing. Not the fun kind, with ballpoint pens and Instagram captions. No, you're being trained to be a scribe, one of the most respected and exhausting professions in Egypt. This sounds good, right? Prestige, knowledge, a job where you sit down? Ha! First of all, scribes didn't just write, they copied, for hours. Days, weeks, on papyrus, on stone, on wood, on clay shards. They documented taxes, grain counts, census rolls, and every last shipment of fish between two dusty towns. You enter the scribal school, a small, shaded courtyard attached to a temple. It smells like ink, sweat, and papyrus glue. There's no chalkboard, no desks, just students hunched over like snails, scraping away with reed pens dipped in black and red pigment. You're handed your tools. A flat writing palette with 2 circular inkwells, several thin reed pens, a blank sheet of papyrus that probably cost more than your house. Your teacher, a thin man with a serious forehead, permanently stained fingertips, and zero patience. He barks a command. You write your first symbol, a simple line. You feel proud. Confident, then you look at the student's work beside you. Oh. You just wrote the hieroglyph for to vomit. Nice start. Hieroglyphs aren't just pictures, they're phonetic, symbolic, and loaded with nuance. Some represent sounds, others full ideas. That owl could mean wisdom, or nighttime. That snake, a letter, a symbol of chaos, or something that's about to slither off your page and haunt your dreams, and they're tiny. Every mark must be perfect, because if you mess up a sacred text, you don't just offend your teacher, you offend the gods. Historians still argue whether scribes were trained from childhood exclusively, or if talented adults could also join. Either way, it was grueling. One ancient training text literally says, "A scribe has no time to sleep or bathe." His clothes are stiff with ink. You're beginning to understand why most Egyptians never learned to write, but being a scribe has perks. Eventually, you won't break your back in the fields. You might even get invited to temple rituals, and if you're really good, you'll get your own room in a cool stone building and people will bring you food. Still, you're stuck on symbol number 12. You've now written divine lettuce 3 times by accident. The teacher sighs so loudly, a bird flies away. You try again. And again, and again. Midday arrives. You're permitted a brief meal. Bread, obviously, but also a small cup of lentil stew. You sit under a fig tree, hands ink-stained, and chew slowly. A fellow scribe in training leans over and shows you his work. It's breathtaking, crisp, clean glyphs arranged in poetic lines, a prayer to Thoth, god of wisdom and writing. You pretend to admire it while secretly wishing his reed pen would snap in half. You return to class. Now, you're tasked with copying the instruction of Ptah Hotep, an ancient piece of wisdom literature full of advice like, "Do not be arrogant because of your knowledge," and "A wise man listens." You take a deep breath and dip your reed. The ink smears. You accidentally draw something that resembles a startled flamingo. The teacher does not laugh. Fringe fact, some students practiced on ostraca, shards of broken pottery, before earning the right to use papyrus. Papyrus was expensive, handmade from plant strips pounded into sheets and dried under pressure. You are not yet deemed worthy. You are apparently still a shard person. Hours pass. Your legs fall asleep, your hands cramp, your lower back forms a tight knot of rebellion. You try shifting your position and accidentally spill your ink. Everyone turns to look. The teacher whispers a curse that sounds ancient and deeply personal. You clean it quickly and resume work. You wonder for a moment if any of this knowledge will help you. You're writing words about virtue, truth, loyalty. Meanwhile, someone outside is literally chasing a runaway goose with a stick. Still, There's a strange satisfaction in mastering a symbol. When you finally write the name of a god correctly, the teacher gives a small nod. You feel the tiniest flicker of pride. You glance at your neighbours. One is dozing upright. Another is muttering to himself. A third is scribbling like a madman, tongue sticking out. This is your tribe now. The class ends when the temple bells ring. The teacher tells you to take your work home and practice. You look down at your sheet. Half gibberish, half inspiration. Somewhere in there is a prayer, or maybe a menu. You leave the schoolyard with numb thighs and inky fingertips. Outside, the light is softer. A breeze stirs the reeds by the river. A crocodile watches from the shallows, unmoving. You crouch by the water's edge and wash your hands. The ink doesn't come off. It never does, not fully. That's the thing about scribes. Their work stains them, literally and metaphorically. As you walk home, you pass a stone wall etched with flawless hieroglyphs, a record of grain offerings written 300 years ago. The symbols are smooth, deliberate, eternal. You wonder if your work will last that long? Probably not. You trudge home under the sinking sun, your brain a jumble of owls, reeds, and slightly sarcastic gods. Being a scribe, it turns out, is just as backbreaking as field work, but at least it comes with shade, sort of. Section 5. You thought learning to write would be the civilized detour in your Egyptian misadventure. But now, sore from sitting, dizzy from ink fumes, and still smelling faintly of pickled fish and failure, you're reassigned. Temple duty. You're not a priest. Not even close. You're a helper, a temple maintenance minion, basically. And if you thought religious life in ancient Egypt was all incense and wisdom, buckle up. You're about to be the one making the incense, cleaning the gods, and not asking questions. The temple looms ahead, massive, solemn, and carved top to bottom with hieroglyphs that probably took 200 scribes and a small army of masons to finish. The stone underfoot is cool despite the sun, and the air here feels heavy, quiet, like even your breath needs permission. You duck through a low doorway and enter a long hallway. It's dim inside, lit only by oil lamps flickering against the walls, casting shadows that make gods seem to shift when you're not looking directly at them. Your first task, scrubbing statues. Yes, divine ones. You're handed a cloth and a small jar of oil, and a priest, not smiling, tells you to clean the limestone feet of Horus. You blink. Isn't he the one with the falcon head and terrifying stare? He is. His statue towers over you. The detail is exquisite, beak polished smooth, eyes inlaid with something that glints like obsidian. You kneel before it, unsure whether to say a prayer or just get to it. You choose silence, probably wise. As you scrub, you notice the statue's base is flecked with wax and flower petals, leftovers from earlier rituals. Offerings here aren't symbolic, they're real. Food, drink, perfume. Some gods have a better meal rotation than you do, and that perfume? You get to make it. In the next chamber, you're shown an ancient recipe, crushed myrrh, frankincense, cinnamon bark, and a sticky resin that smells like a forest after rain. It takes hours to mix it all, using a mortar and pestle the size of your head. Your hands get sticky, your sleeves stained, and halfway through, a bee decides to make you its new best friend. You don't blame it, you smell amazing, fringe fact. Egyptian priests shaved everything, hair, eyebrows, even body hair. Cleanliness was part of their ritual purity, but the temple workers... That's you. You're sweating in yesterday's linen wrap, just hoping no one notices the ink smudge on your cheek. Next, you're sent to help with pigment grinding. The walls of the temple must be kept vivid. The gods demand it. You sit beside a young apprentice who crushes minerals into powder, azurite for blue, malachite for green, red ochre, and yellow from a rock so sulphurous it could strip paint off a chariot. You inhale it all by accident. Your nose now thinks it's part of the painting process. You paint carefully onto a small wooden panel under the guidance of a stooped man with unblinking eyes. Stay within the lines, he mutters. You nod, but your hand slips, smearing blue across a perfectly outlined baboon. He doesn't speak. Just stares at you until you feel the weight of 10,000 years of art disappointment crush your spirit. Historians still debate whether temple painters were artisans or priests in training. What's clear is they were exacting. You begin to appreciate modern coloring books. You try to focus. The rhythm returns. Line, dot, fill. Shade. There's a piece to it, broken only when a bell sounds down the corridor. Time for the mid-afternoon ritual. You follow a line of priests into the sanctuary. It's the holiest part of the temple, hidden, shadowed, forbidden to the general public. You shouldn't be here, but you're small, quiet, and useful. That's enough. Inside, the air is thick with incense. The walls are gold-plated. At the center sits a shrine, sealed like a treasure chest. A priest chants in a tone that sends goosebumps up your arms. You can't understand the words, but you feel them, deep, old, timeless. Then he opens the shrine. Inside, barely visible, is a small statue, the god of the temple. Clean, wrapped in fresh linen, perfumed. Adorned with gold, you help light the incense and refill the offering tray. Beer, bread, figs, and a cooked goose that smells so good you almost weep. You're not here for theology. But the gravity of the moment settles on you. For these people, this ritual sustains the universe. Without it, the sun might not rise. The Nile might dry. Your miserable little life might unravel like bad twine. You bow your head. Not out of belief, but respect. The shrine is closed again. The light dims. The silence wraps you like a linen shroud. Afterward, you help tidy the antechambers. There's a mess of flower petals, spent candles, and one broken amulet someone dropped. You pocket it absent-mindedly before remembering that stealing from the gods is probably a fast track to divine smiting. You put it back. Later, the priests allow you to rest in the outer courtyard. A breeze stirs the palm fronds above. Someone's singing again. Maybe the same woman from the field, maybe not. The melody winds through the temple stones like smoke. You sit down on a bench, worn smooth by centuries of tired helpers like you. You lean back. You breathe. Fringe detail. Not all temples were dedicated to gods. Some were memorials to dead pharaohs who were believed to become divine after death. You could be serving a god, or just a king with good PR. Historians still puzzle over the extent to which daily rituals were symbolic versus literal. Did everyone believe the gods lived in those statues? Or was it just a cultural performance? No one really knows. But when you're in that sanctuary, hearing the chants and smelling the incense, it feels real. As the sun begins to set, the light catches the dust in the air. It sparkles. The temple stones glow a soft orange. You rise slowly, joints stiff, and begin the walk home. Your linen is stained with oil, your hair smells like incense, and you're not entirely sure you didn't inhale powdered malachite, but something about today lingers. You didn't just survive it, you felt it, you touched the sacred, you stood in silence before something ancient and still. Back at your mud brick home, you eat in silence bread, lentils, a slice of dried date, and as the last light fades from the sky, you dream of falcon gods and blue-painted walls. Tomorrow, you're back in the field. But tonight, you sleep beside the gods. Section 6. You wake up to someone shoving garlic in your face. At first, you think it's a breakfast offering. Then you realize it's medicine. For you. Congratulations. You're sick. Maybe it was yesterday's incense fumes, or the bug you accidentally ate, or the questionable water from the Nile you splashed on your face during that heat delirium. Either way, your head is spinning, your joints ache, and your stomach is staging a quiet revolution. You groan. A neighbor, let's call her Auntie Senate, places a warm, onion-scented hand on your forehead and mutters something that could be a prayer or a diagnosis. Hard to tell. She nods solemnly, then walks away and returns with a thick brown paste in a palm leaf bowl. You eye it suspiciously. She gestures for you to smear it across your temples. What's in it? You try to ask. She just smiles and pantomimes a crocodile snapping its jaws. Wait, yep. It's crocodile dung. Welcome to ancient Egyptian medicine, where magic and medicine are not so much roommates as they are one very enthusiastic married couple. You sit still as she applies the paste with all the delicacy of someone frosting a badly made cake. It stinks, it tingles, you're pretty sure something in it is still alive. Historians still argue whether some Egyptian remedies were based in empirical observation or pure magical thinking, but from your perspective, most seem to be, if it smells strong enough, it must be working. And here's the thing, they documented everything. There are entire scrolls, like the Ebers Papyrus, listing treatments for everything from toothaches to demon possession. You, lucky you, seem to have something between the two. Next, Auntie Senate gives you something to drink. It's dark. Murky, sweet and earthy, you recognize honey? Maybe dates, then something bitter. She tells you to chug it. You do, immediately regret it. It tastes like someone dissolved a tree in beer. Your mouth puckers, your stomach flips, she pats your back proudly. This, she explains through mimed hand gestures, will cleanse your spirit and intestines. Great, now you're both spiritually and physically evacuated. Still, she's not done. She pulls out a small amulet shaped like an eye, the Eye of Horus, and ties it around your neck. It's chipped. The cord smells like old sweat and herbs. She kisses her fingertips and presses them to your forehead. You have now been blessed, cursed, cured, and possibly hexed, all in one sitting, as you lie back, trying not to focus on the sensation of dung paste melting into your scalp. You realize something profound. Everyone here believes in this. Medicine isn't just herbs and treatments, it's spells, incantations, rituals, amulets. You can't treat the body without addressing the soul, and you certainly can't sneeze without someone wondering which god you've offended. And it's not just home remedies. Even the official physicians, who trained for years, relied on both practical and magical methods. They used moldy bread to treat wounds, surprisingly effective actually, and honey as an antiseptic. But they also recited spells and wrote prescriptions that involved scarab beetles and divine incantations. Fringe fact: to cure a crying baby, one text recommends smearing mouse fat on its chest and reciting a chant to drive out the spirit of sobbing. Tempting, not FDA approved. A bit later, a healer comes to check on you. Not a doctor exactly, more like a temple-licensed magic user. She wears a linen wrap patterned with protective glyphs and carries a staff tipped with carved ivory. She waves burning herbs over you, likely frankincense and juniper, and begins chanting. Her voice is rhythmic, low, repetitive, almost soothing. Until she slaps you gently on the forehead and tells you your symptoms were probably caused by a malevolent ghost. Oh. You nod respectfully. She instructs you to sleep with a clay figurine under your bed to ward off the spirit. It's small, shaped like a hippo, with protective symbols etched along its back. Kind of cute, honestly. Still dizzy, you lie down and try to rest. The heat doesn't help. The bed is a mat. The pillow, a curved wooden headrest that might as well be a rock in a fancy hat. You close your eyes and try not to move. Your dreams are weird. You're walking through a papyrus swamp, chased by cats wearing wigs, until the crocodile god Sobek offers you a date cake. When you eat it, you're suddenly able to read hieroglyphs and win a chariot race. Then you wake up, sweaty and confused. The healer checks in again, offers you a new treatment, leeches. You pass. Instead, you're given a poultice made of garlic, onion, and, again, honey, slathered across your chest and wrapped with linen. You now smell like a divine rotisserie, but it works, sort of. Your fever breaks that evening. You're left tired but functional, which is probably good, because there's still field work waiting for you tomorrow, and if you don't show up, people will assume the gods have taken you. Or that you've run off with someone's goat. Either way, not ideal. You sit up slowly. Auntie Senate brings you a bit of bread and a fig. She smiles. You smile back, the paste now hardened into something resembling desert cement on your forehead. Despite the absurdity, you feel better. Maybe it was the honey, maybe the chant. Maybe just time, but you don't question it, not here. Not in a world where illness has a spirit and healing is half science, half spell. You remove the Eye of Horus amulet and hold it in your hand. The carved eye watches you silently. You press it to your chest. You'll keep it, just in case. As you step outside, the stars blink into existence one by one. The breeze is soft. The sky endless. You're alive, and in Egypt, that's more than most can say after a bout of temple fever and mystery potions. You take a deep breath. Still smells like garlic. Section 7. You're feeling better, mostly. Your head's clearer, the garlic paste has finally flaked off, and the world no longer tilts when you stand up. A victory. So you decide to stretch your legs, maybe wander a bit, see some grandeur. You've spent days elbow deep in mud and hieroglyph homework. You've earned a little splendor, and what's more splendid than a tomb? Yes, you've heard whispers about a new burial site being built for a high priest or maybe a nobleman out near the desert's edge, and naturally you're curious. Who wouldn't want to see where the rich go to nap for eternity? So you walk, past the market, through the reed marshes, until the mud brick homes begin to thin. The sun is starting to dip behind the horizon, casting long shadows that stretch across the sand like fingers. Soon the wind picks up, dry and full of dust, like the desert's whispering something ancient and mildly annoyed. You reach a shallow hillside where workers swarm like ants, dozens of them, some carving, some hauling stone, others mixing lime for plaster. And the smell? A cocktail of sweat, dust, and warm resin. You try not to breathe too deeply. You keep your head down, trying to look like a distant cousin or bored apprentice. Nobody questions you, probably because you're already dusty, tired, and covered in the universal camouflage of Egyptian labor, grime. A half-finished tomb entrance yawns before you. It's low and dark, flanked by 2 stone slabs etched with protective spells. You duck inside. Immediately the air changes. It's cool, heavy, and deathly silent. You step slowly, guided only by the flicker of torchlight bouncing off the walls. The space smells like age itself, old wood, dried herbs, and limestone dust. The first chamber is being painted. Artists crouch with bowls of vibrant pigment, reds, golds, lapis blue, and brushes made from reeds and animal hair. They outline scenes of the deceased's life, offerings, servants, banquet scenes. The colours are rich, alive. It's ironic. You've never seen anything so lively in a room built for death. One painter pauses to sharpen his reed pen with a tiny flint knife. His hands are stained every colour. His back is arched like a bow. Fringe fact: tomb art wasn't just decoration, it was function. Egyptians believed painted images became real in the afterlife. If you drew a loaf of bread, you'd eat that loaf eternally. If you forgot to draw a servant to bring it to you, well, enjoy starving. A little further in, a priest mutters an incantation over a statue wrapped in linen. It's a ritual statue, meant to house the soul if the body decayed. Plan B for the afterlife. You try to move silently, respectfully, but trip over a rope. A basket of offering jars tips. One shatters. Inside, a mass of dried onions. You freeze. Everyone turns, someone glares, someone laughs. You bow repeatedly, muttering apologies in your best guess at the local dialect. A small bribe, 3 dates from your pouch, seems to smooth things over. Crisis averted. For now, you press deeper into the tomb. The hallway slopes downward, walls narrowing, the carvings here more serious. Spells from the Book of the Dead, rows of intricate glyphs instructing the soul how to navigate the afterlife. Avoid the lake of fire. Answer the 42 judges. Know the secret names. It's less of a spiritual journey, more like an eternal DMV appointment. You reach the burial chamber. Still empty, still being prepared, but the sarcophagus is here, a massive stone box carved from red granite, its lid propped nearby. The sides are covered in prayers, protective names, and one very stern-looking falcon god who seems to disapprove of your breathing. You run your fingers over the carvings, smooth, cold, final, and then someone shouts. You turn and spot a man sprinting across the sand outside, vanishing into the dusk. A tomb robber. The workers groan. One grabs a stick, another mutters, too fast. The priest sighs and whispers a prayer. Tomb robbing is a national crisis. Even in death, no one rests easy. Fringe detail: many tombs had fake doors, false chambers, and decoy artifacts to confuse robbers. Some had curses etched in the stone, threatening blindness, boils, or divine rage. Most robbers weren't deterred. Desperation tends to outrun superstition. You're ushered out gently, politely, but firmly. You've seen enough. Outside, the wind is sharper. The stars now pierce the sky like polished flint. You sit on a rock and think, death in this world isn't private, it's theatrical. Planned, catalogued, but also terrifying. Because getting the afterlife wrong is worse than death itself. You need the right name, the right rites, the right texts. Without them, you're lost. Wandering, gone. No wonder they spent years building tombs, constructing eternity like an insurance policy. You brush sand from your lap and stand. Back home, there's a neighbour preparing funerary oil. You help stir. It's thick, dark, and smells like cedar. Supposed to preserve the soul's scent, or so she says. Nearby, a child shapes little wax figurines. They'll be buried with someone. Servants for the next world. You wonder what your wax servant would look like. Probably holding a reed pen in one hand and swatting flies with the other. Later that night, as you lie on your mat, your thoughts wander. If you died here, tomorrow, would anyone paint your tomb? Write your name? Wrap your body with care? Would anyone remember? Or would you become a nameless figure in someone else's mural? You roll over, you dream of tunnels, shifting walls, and gods with heads of animals. And somewhere in the dark, a voice whispers, "Say my name, that I may live again." Section 8. You wake up to drums, not gentle, wake you softly kind of drums. These are ceremonial, echoing through stone and morning fog, rolling across rooftops like thunder wrapped in linen. You sit up, heart racing, blinking through sleep. And there it is, a royal procession. You scramble to your feet, joining the stream of villagers all heading toward the wide avenue that leads straight to the temple gates. People line the path, their heads bowed, their eyes wide. Children are hoisted onto shoulders, women clutch offerings, flowers, papyrus scrolls, small bundles of bread and honey cakes. And then he appears, the pharaoh, carried high on a golden litter draped in shimmering white linen, a serpent diadem coiled on his forehead. His eyes don't meet yours. He stares straight ahead, lips tight, posture carved from divine stone. You feel it instantly. Awe, fear, something electric under your skin. He doesn't look like a person. He looks like a god, and that's exactly the point. Pharaohs aren't just rulers, they're divine intermediaries. The living Horus, their every movement matters. Their breath keeps the balance. If he sneezes wrong, a farmer panics 3 villages away. He passes by you, slow and silent. You bow, deeper than you ever have. Still you wonder, what's it like to be him? Later you ask a temple scribe who worked in the royal house. The answer, lonely. Exhausting, dangerous. Turns out absolute power comes with zero privacy. From the moment a pharaoh wakes, if he even sleeps, he's attended by priests, physicians, officials, servants. Every action is documented, every dream interpreted, even his urine gets recorded by temple healers. For divine balance, you wince. He eats alone, he travels surrounded, he is worshipped, yes, but also targeted. Historians still debate just how divine pharaohs were seen by common people. Some inscriptions suggest absolute reverence, others hint at satire. Either way, the pressure was real. Imagine never being able to trip on a stair or sneeze in public without causing a national omen. You visit the outer gardens of the palace later that day. You're not allowed inside, obviously, but from behind a column you glimpse part of the royal court at play. They're gathered under tall palm trees, drinking wine from painted jars, fanning themselves with feathers longer than your arm. One noblewoman laughs and spills something on her beaded dress. A boy runs by with a pet monkey in tow. It looks fun until a guard barks and everyone straightens up instantly. The mood drops like a stone. The pharaoh is approaching, again. This time on foot. His guards part the crowd. The laughter dies. Servants freeze in place. Even the monkey seems to bow, and you realize he can't relax. Ever. He must be perfect. Always. Strong, divine, eternal, even when his stomach hurts or his sandals pinch or he's just desperately tired of being seen as more statue than man. Fringe fact, some pharaohs had double rooms in their palaces, secret chambers to escape the constant gaze. Others disguised themselves to walk among commoners at night just to breathe like a normal person, assuming the guards allowed it. You hear stories. One pharaoh locked his sister in a tower for speaking against his divine right. Another was poisoned by his own advisors. A third lived alone for years, convinced his dreams were being watched by foreign spirits. Royal life isn't rest, it's theatre, eternal high-stakes theatre, and the cost of failure, mythological. There's an old saying, a pharaoh who displeases Ma'at, the goddess of cosmic order, risks plunging Egypt into chaos. No pressure. You wander into a side street and find a papyrus merchant. He sells you a scroll, a cheap one, filled with political sketches. Tiny caricatures of the pharaoh dancing like a goose, wearing a too-tall crown with exaggerated eyes. It's funny. It's also punishable by death. You tuck it away. Even laughter has rules here. Back in your village, people speak carefully. The pharaoh protects us, they say. The pharaoh sees all. And yet when the sun sets and the drums fade, they lock their doors. They whisper stories of pharaohs who married their sisters, of heirs who vanished, of royal tombs sealed with curses so potent even the scribes refused to write them down. You lie in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering what it must be like to have everyone love you, and no one know you, to be immortalized yet alone. To be a living god who still gets a cold. Tomorrow you'll be back in the fields, hauling mud bricks and hoping the gods don't notice your limp. But tonight, you think about the man who lives in gold. And how even he, especially he, might trade everything for 1 hour of freedom. Section 9. You wake to the sound of stone grinding against stone, someone opening a grinding basin just outside your door. A girl, maybe 13, is kneeling in the dust, pounding grain into flour. Her elbows are sharp from malnutrition, but her rhythm is steady, deliberate, trained. Her mother appears next, carrying a basket of dates on her hip and a baby on her back. Sweat darkens the edges of her linen dress. She doesn't glance at you. She's too busy calling instructions to 2 older children who are struggling to light a clay oven with nothing but dried reeds and stubborn sparks. You're about to offer help, but pause. You're not really needed. These women have been running the village since long before you arrived. If men plant the fields and shape the stones, women in ancient Egypt hold the empire together, meal by meal, stitch by stitch, prayer by whispered prayer, and they do it without shade or shoes. You follow the mother as she moves into her home. It's small, smoky, sunlit through slits in the wall. She sets down the basket and checks on bread rising under a linen cloth. It's all muscle memory. She hasn't stopped moving once. Historians often romanticize Egyptian women, how they could own property, initiate divorce, even manage businesses. But what you're seeing now is the unpolished truth. Yes, they could do all those things, and often did, but they were also expected to raise children, prepare food, keep the household shrine clean, and, if time allowed, look beautiful. Spoiler, there is never time. Still, they try. She sets down her baby and pulls open a wooden box filled with powders, stones, and metal tools. Her makeup kit. You lean in. There's kohl, the famous eyeliner made of soot or galena, ground fine and mixed with animal fat. When applied, it's cooling, and maybe protective. Some believe it helped ward off eye infections. Others say it was spiritual armor. Either way, she applies it with care. First one eye, then the other. Even with sweat on her temples and soot on her dress, she's radiant. Fringe fact. Egyptian women also used red ochre as blush, henna to colour their nails and palms, and perfumed wax cones, yes, actual wax cones on their heads, that melted slowly to release fragrance throughout the day. Imagine wearing a candle just to smell decent in this heat. You help her tie up her hair. It's thick, dark, and still damp from an early morning rinse. Wigs are reserved for special occasions, but she keeps one stored in a reed box, stuffed with dried lavender. She tells you, through gestures and patient murmurs, that she once attended a noblewoman's wedding. A real feast. Beer flowed, dancers spun, and all the women wore gold beads in their braids. She smiled when she said it. Then the smile fades. She gestures toward a small clay tablet beside the door. A calendar. One scratch for each day her husband's been gone, labouring on a state project near the Valley of the Kings. He might be back next month, or not. You help her collect laundry from the river, balancing a clay pot on your head like you've seen others do. You last 4 steps, it crashes into the reeds. You both laugh. She helps you gather the damp linens, some torn, some stained, all necessary. Back at her home, she shows you how she weaves strips of linen. Her loom is made from sticks and stones, but her fingers work with a grace that would shame any court artisan. She pauses once, wipes sweat from her lip, and points to the sun overhead. It's midday. And she hasn't sat down once. You're offered lunch, bread, beer, and a handful of chickpeas. She insists you eat first. You refuse. She insists again. You finally accept. The baby cries. She rocks it with one foot while chewing. A neighbouring woman comes in with gossip. They whisper, laugh, then hush when the priest's apprentice passes by the open door. Eyes follow him until he's gone. You lean over. Who is he? She mimes big hair, puffed up chest, and makes an exaggerated kissy face. You snort. Apparently divine training doesn't save you from village rumours. Later, you visit a weaving workshop run entirely by women. They dye thread in clay vats, reds from madder root, yellows from saffron, blues from indigo. The air is thick with steam and herbs. A girl your age is threading a needle the size of your hand. Her hands move so fast they blur. They invite you to try. Your fingers tremble. The thread tangles, the knot tightens. They cheer anyway. Evening falls. You return to the woman's house, where she's now teaching her daughter how to grind grain. The stone bowl is shallow, worn. The girl presses forward with her entire body the same way her mother did, the same way her grandmother did. There's no ceremony to it. Just necessity, and yet it's sacred, this life. This labor, these women, you help sweep the floor. She thanks you with a soft smile. Fringe fact, some tombs depict women playing board games, playing instruments, singing. They weren't just laborers, they were poets, storytellers, artists, but most of those names have been lost, buried in lives too ordinary for scribes to write down. But you remember her name? Senet. She's not a queen, she's something fiercer. You lie on your mat that night, heart sore in a new way. You thought power was held in temples and tombs, but now you see it's also in calloused hands, in eyes lined with soot and wisdom, in bread baked with care, even when there's no one left to thank you for it. You remember the way Senet kissed her child's forehead, tied her daughter's hair, and ground another bowl of grain as the stars blinked awake. You want to remember it all, because in this world of gold and gods, it's the women who keep it breathing. Section 10. You wake to shouting, not angry, not celebratory, something in between, curious, cautious. You creep toward the edge of the street where a small crowd has gathered, clustering like startled starlings. Everyone's talking at once, someone's been caught stealing. And in ancient Egypt, that's not a small problem, it's a life-altering one. You push through the crowd just enough to see a man, barefoot, trembling, his linen wrap torn, being dragged by 2 guards toward the town square. His hands are bound with papyrus rope. A broken amphora lies nearby, its spilled contents baking in the sun. Bread, stolen bread. You glance around, no one looks surprised, some shake their heads. A few kids whisper theories about what will happen. A dog barks, a goat bleats. And the guards keep dragging him forward. Crime in ancient Egypt wasn't dealt with by long trials or complicated legal codes. It was fast, public, designed to teach a lesson. You follow the procession into the square. There's no judge, just a scribe, 2 temple witnesses, and a wooden rod lying ominously on a stool. The accused pleads. Says he was hungry, says his children haven't eaten in days. One of the witnesses mutters that the gods hear all lies. You swallow hard. The scribe steps forward and reads from a scroll. It's more poetic than legalistic, full of phrases like violation of Maat, the goddess of truth and order. In Egypt, justice wasn't a system, it was a divine balance. If you tipped the scale, the whole universe suffered, and someone has to restore it. That someone is, apparently, the rod. The man is sentenced to a public beating, 25 lashes, administered in front of the crowd not just to punish him but to realign the moral cosmos. You wince at each strike. So does everyone else. No one cheers. This isn't entertainment. It's theatre for the gods. Historians still debate the frequency and severity of physical punishments in daily life. Some records suggest a surprisingly orderly society with few harsh sentences. Others, particularly letters from scribes, include graphic details, cutting off noses, branding, even exile. The lashings end. The man collapses. A woman, his wife, rushes forward with a cloth. She cradles him. A child cries. And then life moves on, because it has to. You walk away slowly, heart heavy. You think of how close you've come to stealing food too. Remember that time you borrowed an extra fig? Would they have whipped you too? Probably. A voice interrupts your thoughts. Hey, you turn. It's one of the guards. He points at your waist. You glance down and realize you're still wearing that cheap satirical scroll from the other day, tucked into your belt. Oh no. He steps closer, frowns, then bursts out laughing. You exhale. He tells you, between chuckles, that people pass those sketches around in secret. Everyone knows they're dangerous. Everyone keeps reading them anyway. Even the nobles. Just don't show it to a priest, he says. They have no humor. You nod. Speaking of priests, you visit the local temple court that afternoon. Not for judgment, thankfully, but to see how it works. Inside it's quiet, cool, full of scrolls. People wait on benches. A man brings a land dispute. Another wants his neighbor to stop draining water into his garden. There are no lawyers, just scribes. They record. They suggest. Occasionally they whisper among themselves and hand down a verdict. Justice here isn't about guilt, it's about restoration. Balance. One man gives up 2 goats and a jar of honey to settle the dispute. The other nods. They both bow and leave. No one's happy, no one's furious. Just even. Fringe fact: in rare cases, people accused of major crimes like tomb robbery could face trial by ordeal. One involved walking over hot sand with bare feet while reciting a spell. If you finished the chant and didn't collapse, you were innocent or dead. Either way, case closed. Later, you visit the edge of the village and find a row of carved stelae, stone markers warning would-be thieves to turn back. If you steal from this tomb, one reads, your heart will be devoured, your name erased, your descendants cursed, and the worst punishment, being forgotten. In Egypt, your name is your soul. If it's erased, you vanish, not just from the world, but from eternity. You walk back slowly, mind spinning. Justice here isn't blind, it sees everything. It watches from the temple, from the stars, from the eyes of the jackal-headed Anubis who weighs your heart when you die. You pass a boy playing with a carved scale. He's balancing pebbles on each side, muttering, "Too heavy." Too light. You stop, kneel, hand him your date pit. He places it gently, perfect balance. He smiles. Later that night, as you drift into sleep, you see the scale again, floating in the dark. One side holds your name, the other, everything you've done today. You hope it doesn't tip. Section 11. You wake to something soft brushing your face, not a breeze. Not a hand, fur. You crack open one eye and come nose to nose with a cat. It stares at you like it owns your soul, which here in ancient Egypt, it basically does. The cat blinks once, then saunters across your chest, curls into a neat little spiral near your feet, and begins purring like the Nile itself. In this world, cats aren't just pets, they're sacred, beloved. Respected, possibly magical, entire temples are dedicated to Bastet, the feline goddess of home, fertility, and protection. You stretch and sit up carefully, not daring to disturb your furry guest. And that's when the trouble starts. You step outside and nearly trip over a basket of cobra skins drying in the sun. A man with one eye and a deep tan nods at you. He's a snake handler. Apparently, his job is to remove venomous guests from homes before they decide to stay forever. He grins and shows you a scar that runs from his wrist to his elbow. You do not ask how he got it. You move on. Today, you've been assigned to the animal pens along the river, feeding, cleaning, helping wherever needed. Sounds simple, right? Until a goose chases you for 10 minutes like it's got a personal vendetta. You escape barely and hide behind a low wall. That's when you spot something moving in the water. You freeze. It's massive, grey, round, smiling, a hippopotamus, and suddenly you're very aware of how thin your sandals are. Fringe fact: Egyptians revered hippos and feared them in equal measure. They were associated with chaos and destruction, but also with the fierce maternal protection of the goddess, Taweret. That doesn't stop them from biting boats in half when annoyed. You back away slowly. Back in the village, you meet a man raising ibises, elegant birds with long, curved beaks and a look of constant, offended intelligence. They're sacred to Thoth, god of wisdom. The man collects their droppings to dry into ink pigment. You make a note not to touch anything in his house. By midday, you're invited to a house where someone keeps a baboon, a real, living baboon. It sits on a low stool, peeling a fig and eating with unnerving calm. The owner says it was a gift from a travelling merchant. You think about how many guards it probably took to keep that gift from turning the ship into a floating disaster. Still, it seems content. Until it hurls the fig skin at your face, you decide to leave. As the sun drops lower, the cats come out. Dozens of them. They slink across rooftops, through doorways, under benches. They own this place. They wander into homes without knocking, lie across offerings at shrines, and meow during sacred rituals. And no one minds, because cats, in Egypt, are guardians. They protect grain from rats, homes from snakes, spirits from evil. They're also pampered. Some wear beaded collars, others have gold rings in their ears. One particularly regal tomcat wears a painted dot on his forehead. You're told he belongs to a temple. He lets them feed him. Fringe fact: killing a cat, even accidentally, was punishable by death. Entire families shaved their eyebrows in mourning when a cat passed. That's right, eyebrowless grief was a real thing. You pass a shrine where a woman leaves a bowl of milk and a dried fish at the base of a statue of Bastet. A cat immediately claims it, purring loudly. You sit near her. She tells you a story, how her mother once fell ill, and a stray cat curled at her feet for 7 days until she recovered. Bastet sent her, she whispers. You believe it. Night falls. The animals don't vanish, they shift. Nocturnal eyes glint in the dark. You hear the hoot of an owl, the slither of something cold in the grass. The croak of a toad from the river's edge. You sit outside, knees hugged to your chest, and feel very, very mortal, because here, animals are more than beasts. They are symbols, warnings, guides. Each one carries a myth, a lesson. A falcon is Horus. A jackal is Anubis. A scarab beetle is the sun reborn. You remember the time you crushed a beetle in your sleep. You hope the gods weren't watching. You close your eyes and breathe in the scent of the river, of dust, of warm fur and cold stone. Somewhere nearby, a crocodile yawns. And just as you begin to drift off, the same cat from this morning returns. It pads across the ground, settles by your side, and begins to purr. You smile. You've been chosen for what? That's up to Bastet. Section 12, you wake up to music. Not birdsong, not today. This is deeper, louder. Drums again, tambourines, voices rising in chant. It comes in waves, pulsing through the ground like the beat of the desert's heart. You sit up and listen. Festival day. You're not sure which one, and honestly it doesn't matter. Ancient Egypt has a festival for nearly everything. The flooding of the Nile, the rising of Sirius, the birthdays of gods, the changing of the seasons, and occasionally just a good harvest. But today's celebration feels big. You can smell the beer before you see it. The streets are already filling. Women wrap themselves in clean linen, draw kohl around their eyes. Men wear garlands made of lotus and rushes. Children weave flower crowns and throw them at goats who do not appreciate it. You wander toward the temple square. Vendors line the paths, selling sweet cakes made with dates and honey, clay amulets of cats and scarabs, and, most importantly, jars of beer. It's foamy, warm, and smells like bread left out in the sun. You're handed one without asking. No one is sober. You sip. It's stronger than usual. Someone laughs, slaps you on the back, and shouts something about the goddess Hathor. Ah, that makes sense now. This must be the festival of drunkenness. Yes, that's real. Fringe fact. This annual event honored how Hathor, the goddess of joy and beauty, once nearly destroyed humanity in a divine rage, only to be calmed when she drank beer dyed to look like blood. She passed out before finishing the job. Egyptians celebrate this mercy with more beer. You're handed a reed flute. You can't play, you try anyway. A dog howls, no one cares. People are dancing now. Not dainty, not rehearsed, wild, free. A woman with silver bangles spins barefoot in the dust, laughing. 2 boys leap over a fire pit while shouting blessings to Ra. A very old man sways with a basket of onions on his head. Maybe it's symbolic, maybe he just likes onions. The drums grow louder. You feel it in your chest, in your bones, in your ribs. Everyone moves as one, a river of motion, sweat and heat. Someone paints your forehead with ochre. You don't ask why. Nearby, a group is reenacting a myth. The god Osiris lies still, dead. His sister-wife Isis chants over him, flanked by actors playing Anubis and Nephthys. They weep, they raise their arms, and then, with a shout, Osiris rises again. The crowd erupts in cheers. You cheer too, not entirely sure what just happened, but it feels important. 'Cause here, myth isn't just story, it's memory, repetition, a way to keep time from swallowing meaning. As the sun reaches its peak, the party swells, beer splashes, music swirls. People sing songs older than the pyramids. One of them hands you a lyre, you pluck a few strings. It's terrible. They applaud anyway. Someone passes out beside you. Another woman pours beer onto a statue of Bastet and kisses its feet. A toddler rides a goat through the dust like a tiny charioteer. And then, commotion. A priest appears. He's flanked by guards, lips pursed, brow furrowed. The crowd hushes. He lifts a carved wooden mask, a lioness head, fierce and regal, Sekhmet, the goddess of war. He holds it aloft and shouts a phrase. The crowd echoes, then again, louder. Drums change beat, sharper now, controlled. and suddenly the tone shifts from celebration to ritual. The priest invokes Sekhmet's name. The mask is passed around, people touch it, kneel before it, whisper to it, some weep. Others chant, it's beautiful, terrifying. Sacred. Historians still argue whether these public festivals were truly spiritual or just elaborate state-sponsored distractions, but watching the way the crowd moves, the way you feel, you can't separate the joy from the devotion. They are the same. Eventually the sun begins to dip, fires are lit. Songs soften. You lie back on the warm earth, dizzy from the beer and the rhythm, and stare at the sky turning violet. A flute plays nearby. Someone hums a lullaby. A cat curls on your chest. Again. You close your eyes. Fringe detail. At the end of some festivals, participants were encouraged to fall asleep in the temple, hoping to receive a dream from the gods, a message, a blessing, a sign. You wonder what they'll say to you. You drift and dream of lotus flowers floating down the Nile, of gods with golden eyes, and of laughter echoing across the stars. Section 13. Your dreams dissolve into light, hot, blinding light, and yelling. You bolt upright to the sound of a foreman barking orders and a hammer ringing against stone like a ticking clock you can't stop. Someone hands you a water skin. You gulp it like you've been lost in the desert for days. Welcome to pyramid construction. Well, sort of. You're not building the Great Pyramid. That one's already centuries old, but you've been roped into working on a smaller tomb project, probably for a lesser noble, and if you're lucky, not one who wants a 40-ton obelisk engraved with their childhood triumphs. You trudge into the quarry, your body still sore from dancing, your head thudding with the after effects of festival beer and sacred percussion. You try to blend in, it doesn't work. You're immediately assigned to a stone hauling team. Your job? Help drag massive limestone blocks along slick, muddy ramps using ropes, brute strength, and willpower fueled entirely by peer pressure and the fear of being yelled at again. You glance at the block in front of you. It's the size of a donkey and weighs more than a boat. Fringe fact. Recent discoveries suggest Egyptians used water to wet the sand ahead of sleds, reducing friction. Ingenious, still brutal. You lean in with the others, the rope digs into your palms, your sandals slide. You grunt, heave, and nearly fall flat as the block budges forward an inch. Only 1,000 more feet to go. All around you the site buzzes like an angry anthill. One team carves, another sands, others mix plaster, pour water, hammer stone, or simply chant in rhythm to keep everyone moving. It's coordinated chaos, choreographed suffering. You find yourself next to a man with 3 fingers on one hand. He notices you staring and shrugs. Block slipped, he says. Took 2.5. You nod. Noted. By mid-morning, you're pulled aside to help with symbolic engraving. You breathe a sigh of relief. Finally, something intellectual. You're handed a chisel and told to copy a passage of hieroglyphs onto the wall of a burial chamber with no mistakes. You try. The first line is acceptable. The second? Well, you may have just written something about a cheese-eyed god of stale wind. The artisan supervising you stares, then carefully chisels over your work. You're demoted to pigment grinding. Again, you sit in the shade of a scaffolding platform, grinding red ochre, yellow ochre, and charcoal into powder. You mix it with gum arabic to make paint. Your hands are stained with color. Your knees ache. The heat melts into your skull like syrup, and still, the workers sing. They sing to Ra, to Ptah, to themselves. The same 4-line verse over and over. It keeps time. It numbs pain. They're building eternity, one brick at a time. You hear stories from those around you. One man came here after his farm flooded. Another was conscripted after being caught stealing grain. A boy, barely 12, brags about carving a lotus blossom on a ceiling no one will see. This work is hard. But it's paid, barely, and it gives many something they wouldn't have elsewhere: food, shelter, and the chance to say, I helped build the afterlife. Midday, a meal break. Flatbread, onions, beer. You chew slowly, sitting on the shadow side of a stone slab. Your shirt is soaked, your sandals are caked with dust. You're not sure your spine is still aligned, and still, the view. From here you can see the desert stretching forever. The Nile glints in the distance. Falcons wheel overhead. The half-finished tomb rises like a question mark etched in stone. You're building memory. Fringe detail? Laborers left behind graffiti on tomb walls, snippets of jokes, drawings, rival team names. One crew proudly signed a wall. The Drunkards of Menkora. Human history preserved in casual sass. Afternoon brings a new assignment. You help move a massive statue into its resting place. The ropes creak, a worker shouts, someone panics. The base tilts, time slows, you hold your breath. The statue groans, then settles into place. Cheers erupt. You're sweaty, dizzy, and elated. By sunset, the site glows orange. Dust rises in golden clouds. You walk home slowly, your body humming with fatigue, your mind full of stone and song. You pass a scribe recording the day's quotas. He nods, scribbles something. Your name might be there. Or not, but your hands were part of this. Your sweat soaked into these walls. And in 1,000 years, someone might run their fingers across your chisel mark and wonder who you were. You smile. You were no pharaoh. But today, you built forever. Section 14, you sleep like stone, and when you wake, it's to shouting again, different this time. Urgent, sharp, like someone just kicked a wasp nest wearing sandals. You stumble outside and find a small group of soldiers on horseback at the edge of the village. Their bronze chest plates shimmer in the rising sun. Their chariot wheels are splattered with yesterday's dust. They're not here for ceremony, they're here for recruits. Guess who just got volunteered? You, welcome to the Egyptian military, conscripted edition. You're handed a spear taller than you are and a rough tunic with what you hope is dried paint on the hem. The soldier in charge sizes you up, sighs, and assigns you to the rear column. You try to ask what the assignment is. He mimes, walk far, carry heavy. Nice. Your unit marches out by noon, the sun already clawing at your neck. The soldiers chant to keep pace. It's less intimidating than you expected. Many are farmers, scribes, craftsmen who just drew the wrong lot. Still, the leader wears a vulture-feathered helmet and glares like he dreams of stabbing clouds for disrespecting him. You trudge past reed fields, then open desert. The world expands. Flat, vast, merciless. You reach a military encampment by dusk. Wooden frames for tents, stacked shields, racks of weapons. A cook fire sends up thin smoke. You eat a dinner of lentils, old bread, and questionable fish, then sleep on reed mats under stars that feel too close. Morning comes fast. Training begins. You're taught to load a chariot. 2 wheels pulled by powerful horses, designed to speed you into combat and hopefully not straight into a wall. You try once, your foot slips, the horse sighs like it's seen worse. You're reassigned to sling practice. They hand you a strip of leather and some rocks. You spin, release, and send your first stone directly into a nearby pot. Not the target, not even close. Everyone claps. Sarcastically. Fringe fact, Egyptian slingers were highly valued. They trained from childhood, developing such accuracy that they could hit enemy commanders at long range, or at least terrify them with rocks flying from nowhere. Next comes shield drills. You hold a tall wooden shield, square and heavy. You're taught to interlock with others, forming a moving wall. It works until you trip. Again. You go down, and 5 shields collapse with you like a collapsing bread rack. The captain groans. You smile. He doesn't. By the end of day 2, your arms are jelly, your legs have forgotten how to work, and your hands are blistered from holding a spear longer than a conversation, but something strange happens. You start to feel proud, not of your skill, you have none, but of your survival. You're still here, still marching, still trying, and then, just when things begin to settle, you're called for deployment, a border skirmish, they say. Nothing major, just Hittite raiders near the eastern frontier, or maybe Libyans in the west. The scribes are vague. You load into chariots, your stomach knots. The sun rises behind you, and the desert stretches forward like a sea with no ships. You travel light, bread, water, a handful of dates, and faith. And then, you see them, in the distance, a blur of motion. Another unit, not Egyptian, not friendly. Shouting starts. Arrows whistle overhead. Your captain shouts something about formations. You don't hear the rest because your driver just yanked the reins and your chariot takes off like the world's angriest shopping cart. The wind slaps your face. Sand blinds you. Your hands grip the chariot rail so hard your knuckles turn white. You drop your sling. You draw your spear. And then, clash. It's chaos. Spears thud against shields. Men yell in 5 different languages. You duck. You jab. You mostly survive by being small and very good at hiding behind people taller than you. Historians still debate how organized these battles were. Some inscriptions make it sound like chess with chariots. Others, like your current experience, suggest sheer mayhem and luck. You don't die. Somehow. The skirmish ends with retreat on both sides. Neither wins. Both limp away in different directions. You collapse behind a dune, panting, covered in dust and bruises. A soldier nearby offers you water. You thank him. Then you both burst out laughing, nervous, wild. Alive. Back at camp, a scribe records the names of the wounded and the lost. You overhear him mutter, "A quiet day, quiet." You stare at your scraped hands. You think of the chaos, the spinning wheels, the arrows, the man who lost a sandal mid-charge and still ran screaming into battle. If that was quiet, you don't want to know what loud looks like. Fringe fact. After battle, Egyptians often held rituals to cleanse soldiers of death's impurity. You attend one that night. Incense. Chanting, the smell of myrrh in your hair. You lie awake staring at the stars again. Different stars now. You've seen how the world burns, and you've seen how you didn't break. Maybe you're not a warrior, but you're still here, and that means something. Section 15. You return to the village sore, dusty, and carrying a story no one believes. The chariot, the clash, the sandal incident, it all sounds too dramatic, even by Egyptian standards. A woman offers you lentils and asks if the enemy looked like crocodiles. You say no. She nods sagely anyway. Must have been disguised. You laugh, but a part of you wonders if she's right. In this place, gods wear masks, and truth is often just the best version of the story that survives. You're assigned light duty for the day. Thank Ra. And that means message running. You're to carry scrolls between the village scribe and the temple. Sounds easy. Until you realize how much the scrolls weigh and how hot the streets are and how twisty the alleys become after your 3rd beer break. I mean, water break. Still, it's a privilege. Scrolls are sacred. They hold knowledge, commerce, gossip, death notices, marriage contracts, grain tallies, and every version of the truth the bureaucracy can shape. You stop at a papyrus shop along the way. The owner is old, eyes milky with age, hands nimble as ever. He shows you how papyrus is made, strips cut from the plant's pith, soaked, pressed, and dried into sheets. He hums as he works. His dog sleeps at his feet. You ask him what the most important scroll he's ever written was. He answers without hesitation, "A love letter." You blink. He smiles. "The boy paid me 2 goats, worth it." You deliver 1 scroll to the temple scribe. He barely looks up. Just grunts and scratches a note in a ledger. You catch a glimpse of what he's recording. It's not divine wisdom. It's fish counts. He's tracking every basket brought in from the Nile, every tail fin and scale, as if the gods themselves plan to audit his ledgers. Fringe fact. Egyptians recorded everything. Want to know how many goats were born in a village in 1327 BCE? There's a record for that. Want to read about a scribe complaining his apprentice can't draw a straight line? That too. You take a break under a fig tree. A group of children run past you with painted clay dolls, little stick-figure gods, their heads too big for their bodies. One kid yells, "I'm Thoth," before tripping and face-planting into the sand. The others laugh. You smile and sketch the moment in the dirt with a reed. A bird, a fig. A falcon head. It's not art, but it's yours. Later you stop at a house where a woman runs a private letter-writing service. She's hired by people who can't write but want to communicate with someone far away. A relative, a lover, a priest. She listens, nods, and scribes their words onto palm-sized scrolls, sealing them with wax and prayer. You eavesdrop. 1 letter is to a dead husband. She reads it aloud softly. "I still leave your beer at the door." The cat drinks it now. I hope you don't mind. Your chest tightens. Not everything in Egypt is gold and granite. Sometimes it's grief wrapped in ink and tied with a reed. You return to the village square and find a young boy carving symbols into a broken potsherd. He's copying what he saw in the temple. His tongue sticks out in concentration. You correct his falcon symbol. He nods gratefully and offers you a dried fig. The two of you sit in silence, passing the fig back and forth. Even in this land of monuments and magic, there's something deeply human about this. Shared knowledge, passed hand to hand, like fire from one torch to another. As night falls, the city begins to whisper. Not in words, but in gossip. Neighbours lean over walls, women carry water and rumours at the same time. A man claims the baker's wife is an informant. Someone else says a hippo was seen dancing in the reeds last night. A child insists a god spoke to him in a dream and asked for more onions. You hear it all. The lines between information and imagination are thinner here than a strip of papyrus. Fringe detail. One surviving scroll is entirely dedicated to insults, written by a teacher to his student. It reads like ancient stand-up comedy. Your writing looks like crocodile tracks. Your penmanship offends the gods. You'd laugh, but you remember your own flamingo-shaped hieroglyph mistake. You finish your night in the scribe's hut, helping sort the day's records. A goat missing. A temple roof cracked. A merchant returning from Nubia. A love letter gone undelivered. A dream someone had about their teeth falling out. The gods are probably involved. You stack the scrolls with care. These fragile sheets carry an entire civilization. Every lie, every truth, every joke, every fear. And as you lie down to sleep, the symbols dance behind your eyes. You think of the letters you'll never write, the stories no one will record. And you hope, somewhere, that your name ends up in ink. Section 16. You wake with a strange heaviness in your chest. Not fear, not hunger, though both are regular guests here. No, this is different. Today you're going to learn about death, not from a scroll or a mural. Not as myth or metaphor. Today you're invited, well, expected to help with a funeral. The body of an elder passed during the night. Peacefully, they say. A good death. Family gathered. Offerings prepared. Rituals in motion. You're sent to help prepare the mummification tent. Yes, really. You start by sweeping the sand. Even here, even now, cleanliness is sacred. This isn't just body care, it's divine craftsmanship. The transition from life to afterlife is a long process, a dangerous one. And it begins here. You expect grimness, you find precision. The embalmers work calmly, steadily. Their faces are neutral, not emotionless, but focused. They've done this 100 times, maybe more, and they know every cut, every oil, every wrap matters. Because the soul is watching. The first step, washing the body with water from the Nile. Gently, reverently. Then comes purification with natron, a salty, chalky compound used to dry the body. They rub it across the skin, pack it inside. It pulls moisture away, turning flesh to permanence. Fringe fact. Natron wasn't just used on the dead. Egyptians used it as soap, toothpaste, even in temple rituals to cleanse statues of gods. Death, it seems, borrowed from life. You're tasked with holding a jar, one of 4 canopic jars, each protected by a deity. The stomach goes to Duamutef, jackal-headed, the lungs to Happy with a baboon face, the liver to Imsati, human-headed. The intestines to Kibis and Uf, the falcon. You try not to look inside, you fail. It doesn't look like much, but it feels like everything. Later, the embalmers insert amulets between layers of linen wrappings, a scarab near the heart, a djed pillar for stability, an eye of Horus on the forehead. Symbols, yes, but also protection, armor for the soul. Historians still debate whether every layer had meaning or if some were just tradition. Either way, this isn't just wrapping a corpse, it's preparing a vessel for eternity. Someone places a gold mask over the face. It's not real gold, too expensive, but painted to gleam just so. The eyes look skyward, or maybe inward. You help carry the body to the processional route. The family follows, slowly. Women wail softly, their hair loose, their linen robes darkened with ash. Men chant. A priest ahead sprinkles milk on the path and murmurs to Anubis. You walk with them, part of the living river escorting the soul across the desert threshold. At the tomb, the priest begins the opening of the mouth ritual. He touches sacred tools to the mummy's lips, eyes, nose, symbolically restoring the senses so the soul can eat, speak, and breathe in the next life. It's strangely tender. You feel a chill, like something just shifted. The tomb is sealed. The offering table is laid with bread, beer, onions, figs. A wooden figure of the deceased sits beside it, smiling faintly. And then, silence. Not emptiness, sacred stillness. You return to the village. Quieter, changed. You stop at the house of an old woman who tends a small shrine. She lights incense, offers a prayer, and places a tiny loaf of bread at the base of a faded figurine. Who is it for, you ask? She doesn't answer with words. Just presses her palm to her chest. You understand. That night, you sit by the riverbank staring at the stars. You think of the judgment scene you've seen carved into so many tombs, the heart on the scale, the feather of Ma'at, Thoth recording. Anubis watching, and standing to the side. Amit, the devourer, if your heart is heavier than the feather. She eats it, you vanish, no afterlife. No name, just forgotten, it's terrifying. But also, honest, a life well lived, measured not in gold but in balance, fringe detail. Egyptians believed in 42 negative confessions, statements the soul makes before judgment. I have not stolen, I have not lied, I have not caused pain. Not commandments. Confessions, a final self-accounting. You whisper a few under your breath. You wonder which ones you'd pass, which ones you'd fail. A cat rubs against your leg. You smile, you're still here, still living. And maybe that's enough, for now. Section 17, you wake slowly, there's no yelling. No drums, no festivals or funerals, just silent. And the soft, rhythmic sound of the Nile lapping against the shore. You sit up under your little awning of reeds and cloth, rubbing the grit from your eyes. Your body feels like woven rope, used, stretched, but holding together. Today there's no assignment, no temple summons, no stone to carve, god to serve, or scroll to carry. You're left with something far rarer in ancient Egypt than gold or incense. Time. You walk slowly toward the river. Morning light dances across the water like liquid bronze. You take off your sandals, what's left of them, and step into the mud. It squishes between your toes, cool and alive. You breathe in the scent of silt, papyrus, warm earth. You feel the land, because in Egypt the land is everything. The Nile is not just a river, it's the spine of civilization. It's your calendar, your grocery store, your highway, your myth. It floods with divine predictability, breathing life into a desert that otherwise wouldn't care whether you lived or died. You sit on a large stone and watch the day unfold. Children chase each other with palm leaves, women rinse pots with practiced grace. Men wade into the shallows to check fish traps, muttering about hippos and broken nets. A boy offers you a pomegranate. You bite into it. Tart, sweet, bursting with juice. He laughs at the red trails running down your chin. Nearby, someone plays a reed pipe. A simple tune, repetitive, soft, it fits the morning. You close your eyes and listen. This is peace, not the grand kind, but the honest kind, the kind that comes from knowing your hands are tired, your work is done, and the world doesn't need you for a few hours. You pass through the village at a slow pace. You notice things. The woman weaving by her doorway hums a song older than the pyramids. The scribe scratches notes in the dirt with a finger before committing them to papyrus. A cat leaps from rooftop to rooftop like a priest performing rituals. Only it understands. The old man sharpening his blade pauses to offer you a date. You accept, and for once, no one asks anything of you. You climb a low hill near the edge of the desert. There's a single palm tree, crooked and wind-worn, but standing. From here you can see the whole Nile bend, its blue ribbon cutting through fields of gold and green. Tombs dot the cliffs in the distance. Somewhere beneath them, people lie wrapped in linen, protected by spells and prayers, dreaming of eternity. You wonder what your tomb would say, what symbols would decorate your walls. A sling and chisel, a scroll half finished, a cat curled at your feet. Would someone paint a bowl of lentils for you? Would you get your heart weighed? Would anyone speak your name? You laugh at yourself. The sun is warm on your shoulders. You lie back in the grass and stare at the clouds drifting east. Fringe fact: Egyptians believed the West, the land where the sun sets, was the realm of the dead, but the East, that was rebirth, dawn, the start of all things. And right now clouds roll toward the east. Your heart feels light. You trace your finger in the dirt, sketching a spiral. Not a symbol, just a thought. You don't know if you've honored the gods, or pleased the pharaoh, or left any legacy worth inscribing, but you've learned to wake before the sun. To eat gritty bread, to paint a wall, to haul stone. To clean a god's face and write your name on a broken shard of pottery, and somehow that's enough. You rise, The Nile sings. You walk home under a sky the color of burnished clay, not rich, not holy, just alive. And in ancient Egypt, that's the greatest magic of all. And now your journey winds to a close. The Nile flows quiet again. The heat softens. The village hushes. Somewhere in the shadows, a cat yawns, stretches, and disappears into the reeds. You've walked the path of the peasant and the priest, the soldier and the scribe. You've tasted the beer, swallowed the dust, and memorized the whispers of gods carved in stone. You've seen how small a person can feel in the shadow of a monument, but how much bigger they grow in the rhythm of life, work, rest, family, firelight. Bread shared with strangers, stories whispered to the sky. The gods here are many. They roar and they comfort, they watch, but they also wait for you to speak, to confess, to remember. So before sleep claims you, let yourself breathe slowly. Let your thoughts unspool like threads of linen. Feel your body sink into the earth. Hear the wind through palm fronds, the distant call of night birds. You've survived the sun. You've tasted eternity. And tonight you rest not as a tourist of history, but as someone who lived it, if only in dreams. So sleep now. Sleep like someone with your name written in ink, like someone whose heart is as light as a feather. Sleep like a builder of pyramids, a servant of gods, a beloved child of the Nile. Sweet dreams.